All right, so running the ATR-FTIR is pretty easy. The software that we use is called Microlab PC, so you can double click to open that. So if there's a password, it'll be written on or near the computer, a post-it note or something. And so when the software opens, you put the password in, immediately you could start running samples. There are different methods that are built in. So for instance, this 2210 ethanol analysis is set to do transmittance, which is common y-axis units for IR. It's going to check that the crystal is clean before running the background, and it's going to do 4 scans of that. And it's going to collect a new background on every sample. That doesn't have to happen. You could set it so that the background has a valid time limit, maybe of 30 minutes, something like that. You could even do hours and days, but I wouldn't recommend changing that to days. In the instrument, you can see the spectral range that's going to be run. It's doing a full spectral range from 650 to 4,000 wave numbers. It's going to do 8 background scans, and here it's set to do 60 sample scans. For our purposes, I'm just going to make that 8 sample scans just to show you what's going on. You can change the resolution. The lowest resolution is 2 wave numbers. And you can check out some of these other parameters, the apodization and phase correct and things like that. I'm going to save this method, and I'm going to also activate that method since I made some changes to it. So you can see the method is that 2210 ethanol analysis. So to run a sample, you click Start, and it will ask you to clean the surface of the crystal. So in order to do that, I'm simply going to take a clean chem wipe and make sure that that crystal is clean, and then click Next. Oops, sorry. It's checking the crystal, and now it's also collecting the background, and it's doing 8 scans of that. The next thing it's going to do is tell me to put a sample on. I'm going to use this vanilla sample. And so I'm simply going to take a Pasteur pipette and place it on the diamond crystal. I'll show you that. You really don't need very much sample, just a couple drops, but the one thing is that you do have to make sure that the diamond crystal is completely covered with your sample. Okay, that is on there. And then you can click Next. And this is sort of a live image per se. It's basically showing you the scans refreshing. I'm going to put in a sample name here. This is pure vanilla. Okay, and click Next. And now it's actually doing the 8 sample scans that we said, or if you set a different number of sample scans, however many you set, it'll run. And there's our spectrum. If you click Done, it will take you back to the first screen where it said Start. I'm going to click on Data Handling and Export, because I want to make sure I can open this in different programs. There's 2 different export options. There's a thermograms ASCII option and a thermo format. It also puts in a file name and sets a location for you. So I'm going to export both of these because I actually can never remember which one is the one that I need in the different software programs. So I do both. And then I can click Done. And now it goes back to place sample here. So It didn't go back to the start screen because we don't have it do any more backgrounds. All right, I am going to clean this with a little bit of ethanol. With this diamond crystal, because of its hardness and non-reactivity, you can pretty much almost abuse this, but I mean, don't do that, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's run a solid sample. Okay, so here I have just a little bit of tartaric acid. See the white powder. So I'm going to show you how to put this on the diamond crystal and close down the presser foot so that the sample is smashed up against that diamond crystal properly for good contact. So again, we don't need a lot. We just need to cover that crystal. Even, the smallest samples, some very small samples have been used on this instrument. The key is to make sure that your sample is located in the sampling region. And then closing the foot is as simple as pressing down. I'm going to click next. So this is tartaric acid. I'm going to give this a new name. Click next. And now you can see the spectrum for tartaric acid. And again, we could export this. If you don't put a sample name in here on that previous screen, it doesn't auto name for you nicely. It still auto names, but it's a lot harder to find things. So I recommend putting that sample ID in. And for tartaric acid, we can simply wipe the diamond crystal with a little bit of, or with a Kim wipe, and then with a little bit of ethanol. And now we have a clean crystal. The data analysis software is Resolutions Pro. And in order to do that, we can click on Go to Res Pro. And it opens the software, it opens up your latest sample in Resolutions Pro. One of the nice things we can do is do a peak pick. Oops, excuse me. So you go to Analysis, Peak Pick. You can set the sensitivity. So this is actually labeling a lot of peaks. If we decrease that sensitivity, if we increase that sensitivity, it'll add even more. And obviously that's not very useful. So I'm going to decrease the sensitivity. And now we can see just a few peaks, but you can kind of play around with that and make sure you get the peak that you want. If you were hoping to run a sample on FTIR, obtain the spectrum, and then do a library search to determine what the makeup is of that sample, determine what the sample is, you actually need to run it in absorbance mode on the Microlab PC. It's just one of the quirks of the Resolutions Pro that I haven't found a workaround for. So this is a different method that I've set up where we're taking lots of different scans, and then we'll have an absorbance spectra as opposed to a transmittance spectrum. And then we can import that into Resolutions Pro. Oh, whoops. Okay, let's say you screwed that up like I just did and you want to find your sample. You go back to Home, Previous Results, and then search by last modified date. So let's view that, and we'll go to Data Handling, and now go to Resolutions Pro. Okay, so now we have a spectrum where we can do the Resolutions Pro search We're going to search all of the databases. And I haven't run tartaric acid before, so I don't even know if it's in the database. Doesn't look like we're getting a perfect match. So if I overlay these, see that the blue one is the one that it could be a match to, and you can tell that these don't match very well. So yeah. So the database it contains over 10,000 compounds, but obviously that's not everything. So use that with some amount of skepticism.